The first thing I noticed was the way she smiled. Not at me. At him. That particular kind of smile that folds at the corner of her eyes and tugs her dimples out of hiding. The one she hadn't used around me in months. I saw it through the pane of glass as I stood outside the bar, fingers frozen on the door handle, watching them like they were characters in a movie I didn't remember signing up for. He said something. She laughed, head back, hand on his arm, the way she used to grip my wrist when we'd binge shows on the couch, and she didn't want me getting up to grab snacks. She hated commercial breaks. Said they ruined momentum. Now I stood there, in a real-life pause, watching, debating whether to walk in or vanish. But I'm not the kind of man who vanishes. I'm the kind who overthinks, rewatches memories frame by frame, and wonders if maybe I'm the problem. I'm the guy who writes 12 unsent messages in his notes app and apologizes when he gets interrupted mid-sentence. So yeah, I walked in. I didn't make a scene, didn't stomp or shout. I just walked, right past the hostess, past the high tops, and straight to the bar where the woman who wore my last name sat laughing like she never knew me. She saw me, and her entire body shifted. Not dramatically, just enough, like a short circuit behind her eyes. Her smile fell mid-syllable. The hand on his arm dropped. The guy looked up, confused, then followed her gaze. His face stiffened. I didn't say a word, just stood there, soaking in the silence between her heartbeat and mine. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Closed it again. I wish I could say I turned and walked away, that I left with dignity. But I didn't. I slid onto the stool beside them like I had a reservation. Like I belonged there. Like the last 5 years of my life hadn't just been quietly set on fire by the woman I loved more than she ever knew. And what I said next, it wasn't brave. It wasn't clever. It wasn't anything I practiced in my head. It was just one, quiet, pathetic question. Is this why you forgot my birthday? She blinked. And the man beside her? He froze. She blinked twice. That was her answer. Not words. Not remorse. Just a delayed blink, like her brain was buffering. Her lips parted, then pressed together again. The guy beside her, a blue shirt with a smug little watch and the kind of tan you get from yacht decks, not gardens, glanced between us like he'd walked into the middle of a domestic car crash. But I didn't care about him. I didn't even look at him. I only looked at her. The woman I bought blackout curtains for because she said she couldn't sleep with streetlights bleeding in. The woman I took to urgent care at 2 a.m. once because she thought her breathing was weird. The woman I once watched cry over a dead bird outside our window. That same woman now sat before me, silent, dressed up, curled hair, eyes heavy with eyeliner she claimed she only wore when she wanted to feel confident. And suddenly, all I could ask, soft, like my voice belonged to someone else, was, "Do you even know what day it is?" Her pupils twitched. She knew. I saw it flash across her face like lightning before a storm. She knew exactly what I meant. And if she didn't, that was worse. Our anniversary. Not a milestone one, not the big 5 or 10, but still. 7. 7 years since we danced to a song neither of us liked, because it was the only one the DJ had that didn't make our parents cringe. 7 years since she whispered, "Let's never stop trying." 7 years since I promised to be enough. I waited. She whispered, "I'm sorry," like she'd stepped on my foot in a grocery store, not my heart in a bar. I could feel the rage rising under my skin, but it didn't come out loud. It curdled, made me cold, made my jaw tighten and my voice slow. "Are you sorry because you forgot, or because you got caught?" The man, her man, I guess, cleared his throat like he wanted to say something. Like maybe he was about to explain how this wasn't what it looked like. But I finally turned to him, just stared, long enough for him to decide not to speak at all. "Smart move. I'm going to leave now," I said. I think I even smiled. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't want to cry in a place that smelled like citrus and bourbon. Maybe because if I didn't smile, I'd shatter. But before I stood up, I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the envelope I hadn't planned on giving her tonight. Reservation confirmations, a handwritten card, theater tickets, dinner plans, a receipt for a necklace I'd been hiding in the glove box of my car for a month. 7 little pieces of effort. 7 little reminders that someone still believed in us. I slid it across the bar toward her. She didn't touch it. She just stared at it like it might explode. And I whispered, just loud enough for her to hear, "Happy anniversary, Celeste." Then I walked out. Not because I was brave, but because I didn't want her to see me break. I didn't go far. I parked 3 blocks down in front of a shuttered flower shop, engine off, lights out, hands clenched around the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but even my tears had too many questions. Like, how long had it been going on? Did her coworkers know? Did she wear that necklace I bought her when she was with him? Was I a joke over brunch mimosas? Was I the story she told to make other people laugh? I just sat there, watching my own breath fog up the windshield, feeling more like a ghost than a man. Midnight came. Then 1 a.m. I texted her once. Just once. It wasn't angry. Just 5 words. Are you coming home tonight? She read it. No reply. 3 dots blinked for a moment like she started typing, then vanished. Nothing. Silence. I stared at that glowing screen longer than I cared to admit, watching it fade to black, like it was ashamed of me too. So I sat there in the dark, the theater ticket still crumpled in my pocket, wondering how a person could feel so hollow and yet so heavy all at once. I didn't sleep. Just drove aimlessly until I ended up at the overlook outside town. The one we used to go to when we were dating, back when everything felt urgent and possible. I remember the first time we kissed there. She was cold. I gave her my hoodie, and she said I smelled like bookstores and bad coffee. I don't even know what that means, but she smiled when she said it. That memory used to mean something. Now it felt weaponized. Like even my kindness had been turned against me. Used. Forgotten. At 6:17 a.m., I drove back home. The lights were off. The bed still made. Her pillow untouched. No scent of her shampoo. Just silence, and the low hum of the fridge, like even the house was trying not to upset me. I made coffee. Didn't drink it. Just poured it. Watched the steam curl upward like smoke from a wreck. By 8:30, I heard keys. The door creaked open like it knew better than to be loud. And there she was, in that same orange coat. Hair messy, eyes swollen, lips pressed into a thin, tight line. She didn't speak. She just stood there, in the doorway, like a kid about to confess to breaking something they can't fix. I waited, but she still didn't say a word. So I did. Did you sleep at his place? Her eyes flinched like the words slapped her. And then she nodded. No lies. No excuses. Just a quiet, devastating nod. I didn't yell. I didn't even move. That nod, that little cowardly tilt of her head, it broke something in me, but not the way you'd expect. I didn't flip the table or throw a glass. I just stood there, staring at her like she was a stranger who had let herself into my home. Maybe she was. Maybe she'd been one for a while, and I'd just been too busy telling myself everything was fine. I used to think the worst pain was being lied to. Turns out, it's worse when they don't even bother. She took one slow step inside, like the floor might bite. Her hand brushed the wall for balance. I don't think she'd slept. I don't think she even tried. I wanted to ask if she showered there, if she wore his t-shirt to bed, if she let him hold her after. But I didn't. I didn't want to know the details. I wanted to erase the whole night from my life, not etch it deeper. She sat down on the arm of the couch, like she couldn't bear the full weight of being in this house. My house. Our house. Whatever it was now. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said softly, and I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was pathetic. That was the line. That's what she chose to lead with. Not even in, I'm sorry. Not a single, I messed up. Just that rehearsed little line that cheaters across the world probably say in 10 languages. I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I was scared of what would come out. My hands shook. Not with rage. With restraint. Then she did something I didn't expect. She cried. Big, ugly, quiet sobs. The kind that shake your whole chest. She covered her mouth like she didn't even want me to hear it. But I did. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt something awful creep in. Guilt. Like somehow I had caused this. Like maybe I hadn't paid her enough attention. Like maybe I'd made it easy for someone else to step in. That's the worst part. When the person who betrays you cries hard enough, you start apologizing to yourself for getting hurt. I sat down across from her, far enough to breathe, close enough to see the mascara bleeding down her cheek. I was going to tell you, she whispered. When? I asked. Before or after dessert? She looked up, eyes red, lips trembling. I didn't think it would go this far. And what's this far, Celeste? I asked. Ruining me? Or just forgetting who the hell I was to you? Her bottom lip shook. I needed something. Different, she said, almost like she hated herself for saying it. I swallowed the lump in my throat. And I guess I wasn't different enough, I replied. She didn't argue. She just sat there, crying into her hands. And me? I sat in the silence of our living room, suddenly aware of how loud betrayal sounds when nobody has the courage to speak. She started to explain, and I let her. Not because I wanted to hear it, but because part of me hoped she'd say something that would make it all make sense. Something that would dull the sharp edges of what I already knew. I was begging, quietly, inwardly, pathetically, for a version of the truth I could live with. But what she gave me was worse than I expected. Not dramatic, not scandalous, just dull, empty, like even her confession was tired. It started small, she said, like she was describing a crack in the wall we could just paint over. We'd talk after work, text a little. It was harmless at first. They always say that, don't they? Harmless. As if emotional intimacy with someone who isn't your spouse is a paper cut. As if it doesn't bleed. She said he listened, that he made her laugh, that he didn't make her feel guilty for needing space. I stared at her, wondering when I had ever refused her space. I was always giving her space. That's probably all I ever gave her. I let her cancel date nights. I let her sleep in the guest room during her headache weeks. I let her spend weekends with her sister that I later learned weren't weekends with her sister. If space was what she wanted, I gave her a damn galaxy. I didn't mean for it to become physical, she added quietly. I almost laughed again. Not because she was lying. No, she was being honest now. That was the terrifying part. She wasn't manipulating. She wasn't making excuses. She just looked broken. And her honesty didn't help me. It made it worse. Because it meant this wasn't some one-time mistake. It was something she stepped into, 1 inch at a time, while I sat at home waiting for a wife who never really planned on coming back. Did he know you were married? I asked. She nodded slowly. Did he care? She hesitated. He said it wasn't his place to judge. That hit harder than I expected. Because I realized then, I wasn't even enough of a threat to matter. I was a ghost in their story. An afterthought. A name on paper and a coat on a hook. I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. My body felt like it was rejecting the room itself. I walked into the kitchen, not to do anything, just to get away from the sound of her breathing. Every breath she took was a reminder that she got to live in both worlds while I was left drowning in just one. She followed me. Of course she did. She always followed, but only when it was too late. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said from the doorway. I just didn't want to lie anymore. I turned to face her, finally looking her in the eyes, really looking. And what I saw there wasn't cruelty. It was worse. It was detachment. She wasn't fighting for us. She wasn't begging. She wasn't anything. I'm not sure which is more insulting, I said. That you cheated, or that you look so calm about it now. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because sometimes silence isn't peaceful. It's permanent. The funeral of our marriage happened in our kitchen. No caskets. No flowers. No crowd of mourners. Just a half-washed mug in the sink, and the overhead light flickering like even the house was trying not to watch. I stood by the fridge. She leaned on the counter. And between us was everything we'd built, now invisible and collapsing. She said she didn't love him. I asked her why that didn't make me feel better. She said she still loved me, but she wasn't in love. That phrase. That ridiculous, overused phrase. Like love is a subscription service you can cancel when the updates stop coming. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, break something, but I didn't. That's not who I am. That's not who I ever was. I just stood there with my arms at my sides, wondering how many times I'd been blindsided and smiled through it. I asked her what she wanted. She didn't answer at first, just stared at the floor like it had the answer written on the tiles. Then she said, I don't know. That was worse than anything. Not the affair. Not the lies. Not the fact that she'd slept next to someone else. The worst part was her indecision. The idea that I was an option she hadn't fully ruled out, but wasn't fully choosing either. I wasn't worth a yes or a no. Just a maybe. Just a temporary layover on the way to something she hadn't defined yet. I walked past her toward the hallway, and she reached for my hand. I flinched. Not because I was angry, but because I knew if I let her touch me, I'd collapse into her arms and pretend none of this ever happened. I was that weak, that desperate, that hopeful, and I hated myself for it, for still wanting to believe she could undo what had already rotted through the foundation. I don't want to lose you, she whispered behind me. You already did, I said. You just haven't felt it yet. I went into the bedroom, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the bed we used to share. The sheets still smelled like her. The side of the mattress still dipped where she slept. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to burn it all down. But all I could do was sit there, fingers clenched into my knees, wondering how many other people live like this, broken in private, smiling in public, dying in silence. I don't know how long I stayed there, but eventually, I heard the front door close. Softly. No slam. No goodbye. She left like she didn't want to wake me, like we were still playing house, still pretending, still courteous in the face of collapse. And I sat there in the dark, too proud to cry and too shattered not to. I didn't sleep that night. Again, I just laid there in the silence, staring at the ceiling like it might offer instructions. Every creak in the floorboards, every gust of wind outside felt like a memory trying to climb back in. I could still feel her in the room, her scent, her voice, the echo of everything she didn't say. I wanted to believe she'd come back. I wanted to believe I mattered enough for her to change her mind. But by sunrise, the only thing that returned was the nausea. I sat at the kitchen table for hours, nursing a cold cup of coffee I never wanted, scrolling aimlessly through old photos I should have deleted. Us at the lake house. Us carving pumpkins. Her asleep in the passenger seat with her mouth half open, hair tangled in her hoodie. Stupid little moments that once meant everything and now felt like evidence in a case I was losing. I didn't cry. I just stared like a detective trying to find where things started to rot. And then I made the mistake. I opened her laptop. I wasn't looking for anything. Not really. Just, I don't know. A sign? An answer? A final nail in the coffin that would give me permission to stop hoping? I saw the tab still open. Messages. Not texts. Not emails. Slack. Work chat. I clicked it, hands shaking, already hating myself. The first message that popped up was from him. Theo. The man who apparently didn't think it was his place to judge. And it wasn't graphic. That's the part that hurt most. It was warm, casual, intimate in the way people are when they talk every day. Like a second language I was never taught. He said he missed the way she laughed at dumb jokes no one else found funny. He told her the scent of her shampoo was still on his pillow. He sent a photo of some book he said reminded him of her because the woman was quiet on the surface but always at war underneath. And then her reply. The message she never meant for me to see. I wish I met you before I settled. That word. Settled. Like I was a compromise she made before she figured out what she really wanted. Like I was a thrift store version of the life she was supposed to have. I don't even remember closing the laptop. I just know I ended up on the floor of the hallway, back against the wall, knees pulled up, like a kid hiding from a storm. My phone was buzzing in the kitchen. I didn't check. I already knew it was her. Maybe she could feel the air shift. Maybe she knew I'd finally found the part of the truth she never said out loud. I sat there for what felt like hours. Eventually, I got up. I packed a bag. Not all of it. Just the essentials, shirts, jeans, toothbrush, charger, dignity, what little was left. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't make a speech. I just stepped out of the house I used to call ours and started driving. No destination. No plan. Just away. I didn't know where I was when I finally stopped driving. Somewhere coastal. The kind of town that smells like salt and old stories. I booked a room in a tiny inn with crooked floorboards and seashells on the windowsills. The receptionist asked if I was here for business or healing. I said, maybe both. She smiled like she'd heard that before. For 3 days, I barely spoke to anyone. I walked along the shore, let the wind tear through the thoughts still clinging to me. I threw a rock into the ocean for every excuse I used to make for her. For every night, I convinced myself I was overreacting. For every time I said, she just needs space while she carved new rooms in her heart for someone else. But slowly, painfully slowly, I started breathing again. Not in a cinematic, overnight kind of way. There were no epiphanies. No strangers offering wisdom on a bench. Just small things. The way the coffee tasted hotter. The sound of the waves not making me feel so alone. The realization that I was still alive, still capable of laughter, even if it came out crooked. One morning, I found a small bookstore and sat on the floor in the poetry aisle. A thin paperback fell off the shelf like it chose me. The quote on the first page said, "Not all goodbyes are tragedies. Some are instructions." I don't know why, but I kept reading. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a ghost haunting the version of my life that almost was. I felt new. Raw, sure. But real. Like maybe the worst thing that ever happened to me wasn't the end. Maybe it was the clearing of space. I didn't block her. I didn't send rage texts. I didn't post anything online. She tried reaching out again. I didn't answer. Not out of spite. I just didn't need to anymore. Sometimes closure isn't a conversation. Sometimes it's a quiet morning by the sea where you don't check your phone. I'm not over it. Not completely. But I'm over waiting. Over shrinking myself. Over being someone's safe choice instead of their real one. And maybe, just maybe, that's how healing begins. Not with fireworks. Not with revenge. Just with a decision to start over. And this time, not settle.